check it, Tim.
All right, sir.
I'm launching my new podcast about life and business. There are certain levels in life that people understand. The old way of doing business is no longer valuable at this point until they figure out what's going to happen with this whole virus situation. Party promoters can't have as many people coming in the door. Now, do you charge more money? People used to complain about paying, so what's going to happen now when you can only get 50 to 100 people in the door? How is that money and promotion going to work out? Because the people who own these venues are struggling. And you know what's going on with the essential workers. As a photographer, I know your life has changed with social media. Technology has pushed people out, yet we still got to adapt and survive. We change with the times or we disappear. I'm catching up with people that I know, seeing how they've been adjusted and what's on their mind. So like the whole thing with the presidency, the race that's going on. This is not a political show, but politics does affect the way we do business. It's like, hey, I'm out and about in the streets and in cyberspace. I pick up news. Me personally, I watch different news outlets. My favorite news is local news. I'm from Baltimore. They tell you what's going on with the murder rate. Then I watch BBC World News because that gives you a global perspective on everything that's happening with a different spin. Then I watch like Bloomberg, and then I watch CNBC. But I like to keep up with things that are going on in the world. What's been going on?
I think that we have to really look at long-term things right now about going forward.
Gotcha.
We can't consider this a short-term thing. No matter how much people in office would like you to think that by next year, this is we can start getting back to old normal. Old normal may be gone forever, I think.
Yeah.
My business originally was a lot of different everything. We just shoot. There is no, I only do events, I only do this, I only do that. You have only wedding photographers, but only wedding photographers for the most part only do weddings and then they work their regular jobs because you get weddings on the weekends, right? Well, I know wedding photographers that are in a bit of a crunch. Weddings are directly affected by the rules of COVID, you know what I'm saying? I was doing weddings, I had events, I had model shoots, headshot shoots, corporate stuff like that. Maybe I'll get asked to shoot a video for something, for a business, you know, maybe a conference, something like that. All these things, 100% of them are now affected by COVID, you know? And so these rules of COVID, everyone understands or should understand they're gonna get worse before they get better. Old school party, you might get a couple hundred people in a room, you know, in a club. It's a good party, you know what I'm saying? Certain shots you gotta get. You gotta get a nice shot of, or a video shot of the girls walking through with the sparklers and the bottles to the tables. And the great shot of them is when they gotta march through the crowd with the bottles in the air, with the sparkles coming out, and the people in the crowd part ways so they can come like, oh, it looks grandiose, right? And then they walk through, and the people at the table like, oh yeah, you know what I'm saying? And then, you know, there's another girl come in with a bucket full of ice and extra glasses so everybody can drink. It's how you show off in a club, for the table, for everybody, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's a good look. It promotes people to buy more bottles, right?
Of course.
But the rules of the game have changed. No, the rules of the game done changed, you know? So now you have, let's say that same scenario plays out now.
Okay.
Well, now I'm talking about a club with hundreds of people in it. You know what I'm saying? Now it's 50 people in this club. So what's not happening? Those girls can easily walk through no crowd, you know what I'm saying, to a table, you know what I'm saying? They don't gotta raise their hands up, they can just carry them bottles in their hands now, you know what I'm saying? And what the good look is no longer there. Plus, who's inclined to want to do that? You know what I'm saying? Who wants to go to that club anymore? So now clubs and promoters, everyone's gearing up for what should be now a more outside-oriented event.
Right.
So what happens when the winter kicks in? Outside is not convenient. You know, nobody wants to go to the club and wear their coat. You know what I'm saying? So,
I agree with you on that.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So now that part's gone. We don't know how certain things are going to play out just yet. Right. There are so many aspects of what's going to happen when schools kick in, when summer is officially over, what happens in the club scene, for the outside dining. Outside dining saves a lot of small businesses like restaurants and bars a lot of trouble. But that's over when the cold begins to kick in. So then what do? Going back inside is an option, but you're limited who goes back inside, right?
Right.
So what do? They have to learn to change. And the ideas for changing their businesses to compensate for that, we may not know just yet. We don't know what's going to happen just yet. I mean, go ahead.
I agree. That is funny. because for my listeners who don't know, I used to be in the club business.
Yeah.
I started out doing flyers. Over time, I tried to elevate my game. So it gave me a different perspective, because it's one thing to be a party promoter who doesn't own the club, to getting people in there. It's another thing to be club owner. I haven't done the club thing in a long time, because I'm sitting there watching it. Like you said, they're trying to open up the streets. Right now, everybody is trying to figure out how to make money now, but they're not looking down the road. It's not a sustainable business model at this point. To me, trying to make a business model right now is sort of hard. For me, this podcast is a viable choice. Why? I can do it anywhere. I don't have to necessarily have a whole bunch of people involved. I'm a slow roll the video and just do the audio. And you know, a lot of people are doing the Zoom thing, because before COVID, I had some events I was lining up to go film some stuff. COVID hit, oh man, this was gonna be my bread and butter for next year, for 2020.
Yeah.
But I'm back in school. Even that's been affected. I think it's a great time right now to take classes, because business right now is in such a weird flux that people don't really know what to do. They're trying to figure it out. They're trying to pass another stimulus bill. How many stimulus are they really going to be able to pass?
Let me tell you, when it comes to how the government is going to have to deal with these stimulus packages, there are two ways to understand the idea of stimulus.
Right.
PPP.
PPE.
I'm sorry. No, PPE is the equipment.
Okay.
PPP is the payroll protection plan.
Okay.
PPE is a personal protection equipment. You have the stimulus. You got PPP.
Yeah.
And then you have unemployment. Right.
Right.
Those three things are the three ways that we've come to understand. These are things that the triangle of how to protect America from what is coming. The problem is people don't understand this. Understand we are only 6 months into the word pandemic, economical failure, and political unrest. We are officially blocked in Jamaica right now. You know, Jamaica. I mean, Haiti said, no, you cannot come. You know what I'm saying? Haiti. I mean, like, there are other countries. The president, the prime minister of president of Canada, did not want to come to sign a deal because of how serious he feels Corona is in America. He didn't want to come to the United States.
Let's talk about this money.
Okay. You want to fix the economy.
Right.
First, define why the economy is broken. 100% of the reason why the economy is broken is the pandemic. The economy situation right now is based on a medical health crisis, right?
Right. Everybody jumping into it. Right.
It affects everyone we trade with. It affects people that work and do business here. It affects how we shop and spend our money, right?
Right.
The argument that should be made 100% is if you want to do any corrections and fixing of the economy in America, you have to 100% address the medical problems. So how do you fix that problem? You figure out how to fix COVID. You figure out how to mute it, reduce it, and stymie it the best you can. Marcus works a regular job, a 9 to 5. Marcus not feeling well.
I'm an entrepreneur though, but hey,
okay.
Go ahead.
Take it. Okay, even better. Let's take it your business, right?
Okay.
I'm talking about back in the day.
So which business are we talking about?
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Let me tell you why it don't matter. Depending on how sick Marcus is. Let's say Marcus is pneumonia, right?
Okay.
Walking pneumonia, you can work through a little bit. You know what I'm saying? I'm an independent businessman. Now, me being the same thing, I understand we work through sickness often because we feel compelled, right? We are compelled to do that. Makes perfect sense, right? Oh man, I mean, I can deal with this. I'm sick right now, but I'm compelled. You know what I'm saying? So you're like, you know, let me go ahead and let me do this thing I have to do.
Gotcha.
I'll be okay. That sickness will get worse because you're not necessarily taking care of yourself.
Right.
Maybe it'll pass. Maybe it's a sickness that you can pass by. You can live through it, like a cold or the flu.
Right.
But let's say my illness gets a little worse.
Okay.
You're just not able to do what you typically could do.
Of course.
You're gonna have to consider the fact maybe it's better to cancel some appointments and some things and get better first.
Right.
Because if you try to work through this sickness, you're just making everything
You prolonging
go longer.
the situation because you're trying to get $1 today, which really affect your dollar tomorrow.
And you're hurting your business.
Exactly.
So what do? Best thing to do ever, sit down, get better first. And then make up that ground. Making up that ground is easier than struggling through that ground sick. Okay? Because what's the outcome? Whatever you're trying to do, you're just gonna make it longer. You make the negative effect longer, right?
Exactly.
So take that model and drop it right on top of the US government.
Okay. So anything at this point is free fall.
But we need more content to cover the half an hour. Some things you're gonna cut out. So
Yes.
you know what I'm saying? If you need a half an hour, if I need a 15-minute video, I gotta shoot for about 30, 40 minutes. You know what I'm saying? One of the first things you learn you need is B-roll. Lots of it. You know what I'm saying? Lots of B-roll. B-roll is the extra little bits that you necessarily don't need, but you need. You know, you use B-roll to enhance the core principles of what you recorded. You know what I'm saying?
So hold up, before you get into the video stuff that you're talking about. When we first met, you weren't doing video.
Yeah.
You were a straight photographer.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say a phenomenal photographer that you're my favorite photographer.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Like DJ Reds is my favorite DJ. I like other DJs. I like other photographers. What I'm gonna say is I settle for other people's work. And I know that in life, things don't always line up to the way that I want. Sometimes you have to settle to get the job done. It was even this podcast I was talking about, calling it wants aren't always needed. Meaning that as an entrepreneur, we always want to do things to accomplish our goal, but we can't always let our wants get in front of our needs of accomplishing our goal. As an entrepreneur, we want to do a lot of things, but it's not always possible. You started out as a photographer. Instagram and all that stuff came about. A lot of people don't realize that Facebook owns Instagram, I think, at this point. Even though that if you look on the app, it says Facebook at the bottom of it when you open it up.
Clear.
I forgot when they actually started doing that. But before that, they bought Instagram years ago. I think we even had this conversation because they didn't have a good photo sharing platform is why they bought Instagram.
Yeah, instead of building one, just buy one.
Right.
Which makes logical business sense. I think they paid $1 billion for it, which was a lot for, I think it was a 5 or 3 person business at the time.
Yeah.
And that's what I would argue a lot of small businesses aspire to. I aspire to have my business so attractive that someone will pay $1 billion for it. The idea of saying, no, I built this from the ground up, it's mine, no, that's gone. Because you can do more. Those people who built Instagram still work for Instagram. They still run Instagram.
But they got $1 billion in their pocket.
They have $1 billion and they still have creative control over Instagram. From time to time, Facebook will say, we need to change, we need to make this part of Instagram. Like when Facebook implements something on Facebook, like they take down all the videos of the doctor and the team of doctors who were saying that COVID, that the mask is a fake idea and COVID is part of this greater thing and there's this conspiracy going on and the president's right and hydroxy, I can't say the name of that medication, well, whatever that medication was that the president was pushing, really, really works. We need it. They took that down and they ordered Instagram to also take it down. Instagram didn't challenge it. Okay, because they were owned by Facebook. But that doesn't happen often. And Instagram says, we can take down this one thing because while we argue with it, and at the same time, we still are running our business, except now the 5 of us have split $1 billion. What's that? That's $200 million a piece? Am I saying that right?
It's close enough for my listeners. That gets into the difference in the money that you make. Certain things in this world you can do when you're not making a whole bunch of money. When you get to a certain threshold, people will really start taking notice.
Yeah.
As an entrepreneur, when you're starting off, you're trying to make things happen, and it's not easy. Especially a minority entrepreneur, and you gotta go the extra mile.
Yeah.
But there are people out here who just do bad business.
Yeah.
And it makes it hard for people out here who are trying to do good business.
Yeah.
Now you gotta go extra miles because people abuse the system.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that entrepreneurs do not cut corners.
Entrepreneurs have to cut corners.
Okay.
You false them the way the system is supposed to be run, your business doesn't work that well that long. You have to find ways to keep it running as if it was a heartbeat. It's a business, and following the rules is what you want to do. It's not the easiest path to take.
Okay. So no, that's perfectly fine. So this is a conversation that I have with a lot of entrepreneurs about systematic racism, I guess is the word.
Yeah.
But there there are systems put in place to make it harder for people to do things. Regardless of what game you play, you gotta learn the rules.
Yeah.
Now,
The only way you can bend them.
breaking them is the problem. Bending them as much as you can is the situation without breaking them. And that's where I'm gonna say people don't like Donald Trump.
He is okay and comfortable with lawsuits. But then what is his goal? The goal is the consequence. People, see, this is what you have to understand about certain people. You have a good businessman, a bad businessman, and in the middle are these people that are willing to bend the rules to look like the good businessman, and they're never the bad businessman. They're not really a bad business person. They are bending rules. But then you have people that say, I just can't bend the rules. I have to keep bending. When the rule breaks, then they're looking for how they can use the consequence to their advantage. Take a point. How can you use the consequence to your advantage? Donald Trump used to hire he sought out large minority groups to build buildings and do his construction work on properties that he owned, right?
Right.
That was a goal. Why did he seek out these illegal immigrants? Now keep in mind, he's seeking out illegal immigrants. So already he's what? He's breaking the rules. The point I'm trying to make is how breaking the rules, how you use the consequences of breaking rules to your advantage. So what does he do? He seeks out illegal immigrants for a reason.
This is before you talk about building a border wall.
When people thought he was this real estate mogul who owned properties, built buildings, the difference between a political candidate and an entrepreneur, there's one main key function, one key main feature: ambition.
Politicians are ambitious.
No, that's what I'm telling you. A politician is as ambitious as an entrepreneur. Both of them are trying to build something, but they're building something, and their ambition dictates how far they go with it. That's all I'm saying. It takes a certain person to run for president or run for office. You have to put so much on that table.
I've heard or read somewhere that literally, if you want to be a politician, you gotta be somewhat crazy.
You have to have the ability to be crazy.
Okay.
You can, if you are a smart person, you can play dumb.
Yeah.
But dumb can't play you. So let's get back to the topic.
Okay.
Using the consequences of breaking the rules to your advantage, and maybe that is the goal. Okay.
Right.
So I was giving an example from Donald Trump.
Okay.
He's someone who's very comfortable breaking the rules. An example of him breaking the rules on purpose as a goal of something he's doing in business is once upon a time when he was focused on building. He would have these projects and construction. He would seek out on purpose illegal immigrants to build his buildings. He didn't hire your typical construction company or some larger developer. He hired people that were illegal immigrants on purpose. Why did he do this? They worked for a established American business that he knew hired illegal immigrants to complete the work. So that part wouldn't be on him legally, right? So then, let's fast forward.
So he understood the rules.
Oh, of course. You can't break the rules without understanding the rules. That's kind of how it makes it easy to break the rules. So what happens next? He hires a typical business that he knows hires illegal immigrants. Once he hires them, right? Once he hires them, he has his deal with them, of course. They start work per deal, and most of his agreements begin with, we'll pay this much money up front for you to begin business, right? They'll complete the job. And then he says, oh, well, I don't care for this, I don't care for this, I don't care for this. I'm not paying the rest of the money. He knows what the outcome of that decision is going to be. He knows they're going to sue. Wouldn't you sue for non-payment, right? Yeah. But how far can you go in a lawsuit with illegal immigrants as your core body of labor? So they sue. And you know what happens? Lawsuits do not go to term in most cases. What he's looking for...
if you don't have the money, you can only sue but so far, but continue.
That's a different way of using the goal, the consequences of your goal. In these particular situations, though, he looks forward to the suits, because in their suits, which he knows aren't going to come to term, because he's going to confront them with two things. One, I'm going to give you half of what's left on the bill. Two, either that or we can make the whole lawsuit about how you employ illegal immigrants who aren't paying taxes. What happens is they settle, they end up with maybe 75% of their money. He gets a big cut on the deal, and everyone's not happy, but everyone is satisfied. He gets away. Now, lawsuit to penalize people who he knows doesn't have the money. He got upset with the very first commercial that came out showing the elevation of COVID deaths in the pandemic, and his comments dated where he said, it'll go away, it's going to disappear. It's the bigger deal. It's only 15 people, one person, where he downplays it and he says that it's not something we should worry about as the numbers of COVID deaths go up to 100,000. Okay, this commercial is devastating because it shows his lack of care in conjunction with people's lives being lost in the same time frame, and it only got worse. So he says any network plays that commercial, I'll sue. Now that's an expensive proposition when you say. However,
is it within the law? Is it within the game?
It's within the law. You can do a political commercial for anything. There's nothing of that commercial that's illegal. Several, I want to say, I don't know the number, but a large number of local networks play that commercial because they know one thing: they are protected by the law. But that doesn't matter to someone who's going to break it anyway. So he looks at his commercials. A small station is one of 100 or more stations that play this commercial. This is a small, independent, let's say broke station. They have little money, and he only sues this one particular station. Why does he do that? Because they do not have the money to fight back but so long. So defeating them is feasible. He's not going to do that same thing against NBC, CBS, or ABC because these networks got money power behind them.
Exactly.
So he sues this small Wisconsin station who probably is not going to be afforded. And even though they are going to win that lawsuit, if it ever comes to the end, he can tie them up in paperwork and process so long. The money being spent on lawyers, manpower, court time will deplenish any funds they have. They're going to give up, even though they are right. If they don't give up, they'll be broke. That's what prosecutors do to criminals.
So he's gotten into the game with politicians. Now what you have is politicians playing a game of public perception because politicians spend a lot of money on these campaigns.
I would make the argument that perception in business and perception in anything is part of the political game.
He's thrown the politicians off balance.
Because one of the rules in politics is not to break the rules and get caught. But when breaking the rules is a consequence you are looking for, that is not something they're prepared for. Take anything
before you get all the way into that.
Okay.
The point of government is not to make a profit.
Sure it is.
That's when you get into that gray area.
There are many, many areas when government does want to make a profit.
The whole thing is with the government is not to make a profit.
Yeah, but define making a profit.
You talk about the gray area.
It's not gray at all.
It's gray. It's very gray.
Think about it like this. A profit could be for government. A profit could be success in a particular function.
So now you're talking about perception.
No.
Yes, it's perception. Because what is the definition of a profit?
Define it for me. So I know what you're talking about.
I have to look it up. A profit is, I'm going to say that off the cuff, a profit is to cover your expenses and to make money beyond that. So a profit is, let's see, a profit is a financial gain, especially the difference between the amount earned and the amount spent in buying, operating, or producing something.
So let me explain why that is exactly what government does. One, you take out one word, it's exactly what government does. In many cases, take out the financial part, the gain is what the profit is in many cases. Government will, when it comes to money, government will make a bad deal, a bad trade deal with a country for the gain.
You can't do that in business now.
This is not the same idea.
That's what I'm saying. So this is what I'm saying. But you taking an entrepreneur out of business and putting him into politics.
And that is why this government has had all the problems it has, because it's not the same thing. If you wonder why the country can't balance the budget, because the budget is not the goal.
No, of course not.
But there's a gain there almost always.
No, this is what I'm saying, that as him being a president, he has thrown the game so off tilted to the point that they don't really understand the difference between a citizen, an entrepreneur, and a politician. Three different things that you're trying to incorporate into one campaign. Check it. That was the first episode with me, Marcus G, out and about in the streets and in cyberspace. Hey, MGL Tips is my hashtag. So you find that, you find me. I got my producer.
Hey Ty, you did it again.
Laying down the tracks for me. I want to make sure that you go out and vote because it's important. It's part of your duty. Even if you don't like any of the candidates running, you can always write someone in. It's part of the game. You gotta learn, you gotta play it because it does affect life and business. Keep elevating your game. Stay up. This is Marcus G logging off till next time. Peace. This was a Marcus G production.